Where shall I find a new adversary so close to my own level?
Try the local sewer.
You're listening to 91 Reasons, a journey into the twisted landscape of pop culture. Keep your hands and arms inside the podcast at all times. And now, the voice, Jeff Tucker.
Has something ever happened to you that was not so good, but the results of it were something good happened? Does that make sense? Like, I'll give you the example I'm talking about. Movie theaters are closed here in California. The last movie I saw in the theater was Tenet, and boy, in the long run, if that turns out to be the last movie I ever see in a theater, I don't know what I'll do. You've got to go out on a high note. Even if it's a revival screening of some, Back to the Future, Star Wars, Goonies, something, I will make an effort, even if I have to go across state lines to go to a movie theater and see something, to wash Tenet off of the hierarchy of last movie I saw in a theater. But since the theaters are closed, you have to watch movies at home, which I'm fine with. I do enjoy going to the movies. I have always loved going to the movies. It's basically been my lifelong hobby, is going to the movies, ever since I was old enough to be dropped off at the theater or ride my bike. And we're talking summer 85 is when it all clicked. And that makes a lot of sense when you talk about why I like Back to the Future so much, and Goonies, and even Gremlins was re-released that year. 85 was a big year for movies. But you can't go to the movies, you're at home. But I've got 500 or 600 DVDs right now or more, and a huge chunk of them are movies still in plastic. I buy them at the thrift shop as fast as I can, because I never want to see a movie and try to go to a streaming service and either it's not there or it won't work. And I did that once with a couple of movies where I was desperate to watch them, but the streaming service just wasn't working, and it took forever to load in, and then it kept stuttering. But, I plowed through it. I've never had a full, clear movie presentation of Disney Plus. Every movie on Disney Plus either is delayed in starting, you have to wait for that loading screen, that little swirl just goes round and round and round, or sometimes you pause it, you go to the bathroom, you come back, you hit play, and the dialogue and the scenes are out of sync, and you have to wait for it to catch up. It's very annoying. Netflix has always worked, but boy, Disney Plus has had problems ever since day one. It's been buggy, but you watch them. And I watched Soul, and I think I'll have to sit and do a whole episode on Soul. But I was saved going to the movie theater to watch Wonder Woman, because Wonder Woman 84, if I had gone to the theater to see Wonder Woman 84, I would have left so upset. Now, Tenet made me angry, but I have no connection to Tenet. The main character doesn't have even a connection to himself. He doesn't even have a name. He's simply the protagonist. But Wonder Woman? Man, I love Wonder Woman. I watched every episode when I was a kid. I was confused as to why Season 1 is a period piece and then Season 2 is in modern day. Turns out it was money, of course. But I watched every episode of the Linda Carter show. I even watched, as a kid, a really young kid, I watched the movie that predated the series where it's Kathy Lee Crosby as Wonder Woman and not Linda Carter. And that's why I got into watching That's Incredible, because I'm like, that's the original Wonder Woman from the TV movie. So there's all kinds of Wonder Woman lore. I've always had Wonder Woman toys, from Superpowers to the Wonder Woman that was in the Toy Biz line after the first Batman movie. The cartoons, the comics, you name it. I was upset when that pilot never got picked up. That one that they did like 2010 or 11, they did a pilot for Wonder Woman, and she wore pants, and I'm like, I have no problem with that. Wonder Woman is, if you go back into history of Wonder Woman, the guy who made her, who created her, he had some serious stuff going on. But that doesn't mean the character is arguably the most famous female heroine character of all time. Certainly the most famous female superhero of all time. She trumps anything in the Marvel Universe as far as female. She's better than Captain Marvel. She's better than Black Widow. She's better than Gamora from Guardians. And those are all great characters. But Wonder Woman's in the top echelon, right? And when they brought her into Batman v Superman, they really did right by the character. They made her a side character. She wasn't the focus. They let some suspense build. Let's bring her slowly into the DC universe. I really enjoyed the first Wonder Woman movie, even though I think at the end is just ridiculous. It's such a grounded, well done film, period piece. It's during the World War I, and then at the end it just becomes another bland CGI video game cutscene where nothing on screen is real. There's no actors involved. It's just CG characters battling it. And that felt like that's a pretty raw deal to give a movie that had built up so well. There's a reason Baby Yoda is so popular. It's because he's a puppet, because he's tangible. A lot of the CGI characters, even if they're well done, and they're loved when they come out, they don't last. When was the last time anybody mentioned Gollum or Dobby? To me, the best CGI character in a movie ever is Thanos. Because Thanos is so well done, you forget he's not real. He's a cartoon. But practical effects to me, because I'm old, are always going to be better. I could do a whole episode, and I think I will, about a handful of movies I've seen lately where you can tell nothing is real. And the trade-off for that is the biggest suspension of disbelief you have had to attain yet to enjoy a movie. To enjoy Harry Potter, I have to just forget that wizards are fake. Star Wars, fake. But you go into it and you're drawn in by the characters. And the world that they live in becomes real to you. So much so that, people I know would love to just live in Harry Potter. Move to Pandora, right? But Wonder Woman 1984, it's hard to think even where to begin with this movie. This movie is so bad that, like, Tenet was just, I don't know what was happening. Wonder Woman's bad on a whole nother level because somewhere in there might be a cohesive film. But I don't know what, maybe the shutdown affected them so much. Maybe they didn't have time to, the movie got delayed and delayed and delayed, so they had a lot of extra months. This should already be on Blu-ray. This should have had a full theatrical run, a toy line, a Happy Meal, and now it should have its Blu-ray release. And instead, we're just seeing it for the first time. So they had some extra months to fix Wonder Woman. This is a 2.5-hour movie. When I saw the running time, I groaned. There's no reason for Wonder Woman to be 2.5 hours. You could have told this story in 90 minutes. A full hour could have been cut out of this film, and you wouldn't have even felt it. This movie is trying so hard to be everything, but it doesn't take the time to earn everything. It's so busy, like, this is what they do, this is what they do, this is what they do, that you're just numb because there's zero setup and effect in this film. Things just happen on the fly. And that's the part that really irritated me, is that things just happen, and you're not supposed to question it. They're just happening. This is a 2.5-hour movie that has, are you ready? Are you ready? Three action sequences. 3. It opens on a lackluster robbery at a mall. Then you have to wait a full hour before the one action sequence in the movie where she's trying to get the bad guy from a truck convoy that rips off Raiders of the Lost Ark as if they think we won't notice. She's even being dragged under the truck at one time. I kept half expecting to hear bum ba bum 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 bum. Nothing. And then there's a little fight scene at the White House. I wouldn't call it an action sequence. And then you have to wait till the very end for a fight between Wonder Woman and Cheetah. Zero action. It's hard to believe that a $200 million superhero movie has 3 mediocre action sequences, with the truck being the highlight, but you're standing on the shoulders of giants when you take that compliment, because the compliment really belongs to Steven Spielberg and the people who made Raiders of the Lost Ark, and they did it almost 40 years ago. Hello. The movie opens with Wonder Woman thwarting a robbery at a mall. There's no setup to it. It opens on 10-year-old Wonder Woman competing in one of those movie challenges where it's overcomplicated. It's like the sports scene in Fantastic Mr. Fox or Quidditch or any movie where there's an overly elaborate sporting event. They don't even explain it. There's no scene where the lady goes, well, we're going to go here, and then go here, and then go here, and then go here, and then go here. There's none of that. So when young Diana, who's 20 years younger than anybody else competing, when she loses the footing on her horse and takes this very clever roundabout way, then is accused of cheating. Well, that's great and all, except you didn't tell the audience what the rules were. So when she did that, we just assumed she was being clever and that she would be rewarded at the end for being clever. But instead, she's told, your win was a lie. You must tell the truth. You can't be just a facade. I'm like, there's the heavy-handed storytelling. That's the best we're going to get from here, from this movie. So when she thwarts the people at the mall, they do a couple of shots of Wonder Woman knocking out video cameras, surveillance cameras. Because remember, in Batman v Superman, she clearly admits that she left humanity. And she's not fought crime in years and years and years. Well, she's clearly at a mall in the middle of broad daylight in red, white, or gold, red, and blue, lassoing people, rescuing children, and all she does occasionally is put her finger to her lips shh, don't tell anyone I was here. So I'm getting frustrated because it really doesn't bother me that no one in Batman v Superman remembers what happened, because this movie was made long after that one. And they weren't smart enough to sit down and say, it has to make sense in canon. I don't care about that. I'm willing to forgive that part of the canon. I just don't care. Because guess what? This movie has way many more problems than just, I thought no one had seen Wonder Woman for 30 years. But anyways, who cares? Because everything else is going on. So, Diana Prince, Wonder Woman, is working at the Smithsonian, and she's in the antiquities. It's another nod to Raiders of the Lost Ark, I guess. Maybe they really liked these homages, making her a suit. She's not an archaeologist, but she's working with artifacts. And then we meet Kristen Wiig, who's, I don't even remember the character's name. She's Cheetah, but her deal is that she's a mousy person, and she longs to be what she perceives Diana to be, which is this very strong, forthright woman who's also, there's an allusion to always gets men, which is fine. I mean, Gal Gadot is very good looking. Now, what she isn't is a good actor. There's a scene in this movie, I thought they were joking, because she is terrible in a scene that comes up later. Anyways, one of the artifacts that was ripped off at the mall turns out to be this dumb-looking rock with a band around it, and it's the ancient wishing stone, which I guess is actual folklore, actual legend. But in a movie like this, if you're going to introduce the wishing stone, then you better have it do some amazing things. You have an entire CGI wizardry at your fingertips. You can create anything. So when they introduce this wishing stone, I think to myself, wow, the finale of this movie is going to be gigantic. It's going to look like Godzilla with people toppling buildings, because It's the wishing stone. The sky's the limit. And instead, Diana wishes for Steve Trevor to be alive, and Kristen Wiig wishes to be like Diana. That's it. That's all they wish for. So in the next couple of scenes, we're introduced to the villain of the piece, Max Lord. Max Power has a name you'd love to touch, but you mustn't touch. Anyways, he is this, what was that guy in the 80s, like Tommy Vu? He would always be on a boat with women, and he'd go, you could have all these women. You could be rich like me if you follow my plan. He's one of those guys, you know, a TV huckster. And I don't know if they were making an allusion to Trump or not. I don't know. I guess maybe they were, but it didn't come across. It wasn't really out there. I know there's been a lot of clickbait articles that I refuse to click on, whether it was or not. You know, that still persists about Biff Tannen in Back to the Future 2. And I'm like, can we just have movies? Can we just have movies that are escapism? Would that be okay? And this is Pedro, the guy that plays the Mandalorian. And I think as the Mandalorian, he's fantastic. He's very well, he comes across very well in the show. He's acting with a helmet on for 90% or 95% of the show. So there's a lot of leeway we give him on the Mandalorian. But unfortunately, in this one, he's a mess. I couldn't even tell you whose idea it was to make this character like this. So he's this TV huckster guy who's a sham. He has no money. So when we meet him, not only is he having to take care of, I guess, his adopted kid. It's never, if it was mentioned, I didn't catch it. And we never see the kid's mother. But it's like this 12-year-old boy that he has to prove himself to. And he gets dressed down in front of the boy by this benefactor who's like, I'm taking all the money out of the company. You're a washed up. There's no oil in your oil wells anywhere. We're supposed to believe that this Max guy set up oil rigs all over the country on land that he knew had no oil. And he was just bilking people for their money with never any idea that he had to return it back. He's a criminal to begin with. He has no redeeming qualities at all. He lies, he yells, he's rude, he's awful to his child, and he's cheating people. So it's weird that they're going to try to, at the end, give this guy redemption, which seemed really odd to me. It turns out he's the guy that was going to buy the wishing stone from the jewelry store at the mall. Now, where they got it from, I don't know. And they could have cut out that entire Wonder Woman training session of her running through the forest. They could have jettisoned that. The movie would have lost 20 minutes right off the top and just showed, somebody finding the wishing stone wherever it was. A really clever sequence where they get it, they make a wish on it, something bad happens, and then it rolls into whoever's going to take it to the mall. I just watched a movie like that. It was that movie Vibes. That was very close to that, where they keep grabbing this object and it gets worse every time. And we're told through usage of the monkey's paw legend, if you've ever read the monkey's paw, where they get this monkey's paw that grants them wishes, but every time they wish for something, it is not what they wanted. It's worse, and the more they wish, the worse it gets. They make an allusion to that, but we don't ever really see what the downside is. What is the downside? Wonder Woman has granted her wish, Steve Trevor is alive, and the downside is that she's losing her powers. And it's very odd. I know that in the movie somewhere, it's in there because she keeps getting bloodied and beat up, but she doesn't give up, and she never really says, I can feel like I only have a day left. They don't do anything like that. The movie just sort of plods along, and Kristen Wiig is never given a comeuppance. She's never given something bad. In fact, she gets 2 wishes, which I didn't really understand. You know, for a 2.5-hour movie, they left so much unexplained. So when Max gets the wishing stone, he ingratiates himself into Kristen Wiig's life. He makes out with her. He makes it seem like he's gonna, have sex with her, and she's like, hell yeah. And then he just takes the stone and leaves. And she never gets mad or anything, which is weird because we see her in the movie get attacked by a guy in the park whose intent is to rape her in the park. She's saved by Wonder Woman, which sort of instills in her, well, I want to be like her. But when she gets the powers, she finds that rapist guy who apparently just is in the park drinking all the time. He's not homeless. He looks like just an average, dumb businessman in Washington, D.C., but he's always in the park drinking and threatening to rape women. This guy would have been beaten up long before Kristen Wiig showed up. But she beats him within an inch of his life and then is like, oh my God. And this is going to sound weird when I say that the movie's 2.5 hours and it's too long. But they could have really milked her gaining strength a lot longer in the film. She has like 1.5 scenes where she's shown lifting weights and she's really good at it. She rips the refrigerator door off. But there's never any it's not mined for what I think could have been like some really funny sequences at all. It's just sort of there. Now she has powers. And with her powers, she does her hair, she can walk on high heels, and she can wear a dress. It's very strange. And maybe because I'm a guy, these scenes aren't directed at me. I don't know what it's like to walk in heels, but maybe you could walk me through it. Pardon the pun. Because what the wishing stone does is so vague, very vague. You know, we know in Raiders of the Lost Ark that the army that carries the Ark before it is invincible, and that's why they have to get it back. And it's not till late in the game do we realize that if a non-believer opens it, they're all going to die, and you should not look at it. Now, that's never explicitly stated in the film, but it seems like a natural course of Indiana Jones' story for that to happen. The wishing stone doesn't have anything like that. And when Max gets the wishing stone back to his office and sits down at his desk, pause the movie right there. Because where's it going to go from here? In an average, well-written movie, he would grab that stone and he would say, I wish to be the most powerful man on earth. And then he would have all the fame and wealth and women and money and whatever, but he would pay a price of slowly becoming a monster, because a giant, muscled monster would be the most powerful thing on earth as far as the food chain is concerned. He doesn't do that. Instead, he pulls the Jafar move from Aladdin when, the genie tells him, or, Aladdin tells him, or Jasmine says, the only thing more powerful than a sultan is a genie, because the genie can grant wishes. But he doesn't realize that genies get stuck in bottles and in lamps, and he's gone forever, for a millennium. So he grabs the stone and wishes to be the wishing stone. And at that moment, I looked at the screen and I thought, well, what does that mean? He wishes to be the wishing stone? So then the wishing stone disintegrates, and he's sort of, the wind blows his hair, and he's like, I'm the wishing stone. Well, what does that mean? They don't ever explain, other than now he can grant wishes. But when he grants the wishes, he gets to decide what the downside is for the person of the wish he granted, I guess. Because the first thing he does is he goes to that benefactor, grabs him, and gets him to say, I wish that the company was successful. And then instantly, the company is successful. Oil, springs up everywhere. We're not shown this. We're told this through dialogue. There's no shots of the oil wells spewing in the air. Imagine in a Michael Bay movie. If Michael Bay had directed this movie, the minute he made that wish, they would cut to the Midwest, tumbleweeds going by, the wind whipping across barren wasteland, and it says, next food and lodging 400 miles. And there's a guy in a little booth sipping his coffee. And he puts the sugar in the coffee. He looks up, and the oil well in front of him just erupts and covers him in black oil. And he's like, oh my God! That would be like the payoff to that wish. But we're never shown any of it. And he goes, well, in exchange for making the company successful, I'll take all your shares. And as he's leaving, suddenly the IRS is coming in to arrest him. Well, the wish was made, movie time, 10 minutes ago. Does that mean that the IRS men materialized right outside the door of that? Were they always coming and they were going somewhere else, but they were diverted here? Like, the movie never explains any of this. Again, things happen because they need to, with no rhyme or reason or logic. And then the biggest doozy of them all is the return of Steve Trevor. He shows up at the party, and he's just back. And she can't believe it. So they go back to his place, which I thought from the trailer that whatever was going on, she wouldn't know about it. That whatever funny business brought Steve Trevor back, that he would keep it from her, because he would know that if he told her the truth, she would make him disappear again. So he would have this little secret of, I can't tell her the truth. But instead, he opens right up. He goes, look, I woke up in this guy's house, this apartment, and I looked for you. I stalked you, basically, he does, and I found you. And then he walks over in the mirror, and there's another dude's reflection in the mirror, which means, according to these movie rules, that everybody on the planet sees that guy except Diana Prince. She sees Steve Trevor, not, Mr. Nobody. Well, Mr. Nobody still exists. Mr. Nobody has a job. Mr. Nobody has friends, family, acquaintances, priorities, and it all goes out the window because his body has been taken over by Steve Trevor, which there's a whole movie right there. And what does Diana Prince do? Knowing the truth about this, she has sex with this guy. She bangs him and then lays in bed and goes, we should just stay here all day doing this. We shouldn't go anywhere. We should just have sex all day. And I thought, wait a minute. That's not Steve Trevor. That's another dude. Okay, I'm not a prude. I don't subscribe to any. You live your life, I'll live mine. But if this movie, if the genders had been reversed, if it was Superman bringing Lois Lane back by the means of taking over another woman's body and then having sex with her, this movie would never have been released. Because they did a movie like that called The Cobbler with Adam Sandler, where he takes over people's bodies. And at one point, he's about to walk in on the shower and have sex with this woman because she thinks it's somebody else. He doesn't do it, but he thought about it. Or does he do it? I only saw the movie once, and it wasn't that memorable. It was okay. It was a Jewish version of Batman. But I remember there was a big backlash over the moral question of that. And in this movie, it's not even brought up. He's just Steve Trevor, and this is what they're going to do. And it was really weird. They have a little fashion show where he puts on these little outfits for her. Then they walk around and they look at breakdancing and art. And he's just back. And it reminded me of the scene at you ever seen AI? I mean, I wouldn't recommend anybody watch AI. It's a mess of a movie. But at the end of the movie, the little robot boy is given one magical day with the mother that rejected him a millennium ago. And now she's back. He knows it's fake, but he doesn't care. He decides to live in that moment, in that one perfect day. And that's what it reminded me of like, I guess if you were so in love with somebody who had legitimately died, You might do anything for one day back with him, even pushing aside the moral questions of taking over this guy's life. Very strange. And I'll tell you, other than a quick little moment at the end, there's no remorse for any of this. Zero. Which I thought was real. Again, a 2.5 hour movie that doesn't have time for any of this? Ridiculous. The other thing that this movie is weird is in the trailer they remixed New Order, Blue Monday, do 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 do, right? And in this movie, other than what I think was about a minute and a half of Frankie Goes to Hollywood without any lyrics, zero 80s pop songs. How do you make a movie about the 1980s and not have pop songs in it? And not firmly place it in the 1980s? Zero. I was stunned. I kept waiting for the music to kick in, you know? Boom, and it kicks in. Like when Marty McFly hangs up the phone and it goes, "That's the power of love." Those are punctuation moments. And there's nothing like that in this movie. It's all orchestration, which I thought weird choice for a period piece. Because the shorthand way of telling a period piece story is through music. And they don't do any of that. They don't do any of it. So Steve Trevor and Diana Prince figure out that through talking to Kirsten Wiig, who now is hot and has guys like drooling on her, is a really weird, fantasy moment of like, every guy's like, "You're looking good today. I never noticed you before." And then like leering at her. But she's okay with it. I mean, that's what she wanted. So totally fine. And she was going to have sex with the Max guy. So who cares, right? But this movie's so ridiculous. So now that Max has the most successful oil business he could imagine, where does the movie go? How do they escalate what is happening? We know now that he's the wishing stone and he can make wishes come true at a price. He's like Rumpelstiltskin. There's a weird moment where he sees a magazine, and then on the magazine is like the king of crude, some Middle Eastern prince, controls all the oil. So he flies to Cairo to meet with this guy. And in another scene reminiscent of Last Crusade, remember when they go to they go to that country and they ask permission to go get the Holy Grail, and in exchange they give him the car, that you will have tanks, you will have camels. It's a great sequence. They kind of do that with this guy, where he says, "What do you wish for? What do you wish for?" And he's like, "Well, I wish for my nation to be recognized and sovereign, and my borders to be secure, and da 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 da." The guy says, "Fine. In exchange, I will take all your oil." And there's no oil to take, I guess. He takes his security team. Like, I just laugh at the absurdity of this. A guy who could wish for anything and make things happen. He can literally, with the power of this crystal, they've shown it in the movie, he can resurrect the dead. So, in exchange for this magical wish, he takes the guy's battalion of soldiers and his Humvee or something. Like, that's it. So in an inexplicable moment, the world declares war on this guy's new sovereign nation as walls rise up out of the ground, separating his quote-unquote nation from the rest of the world in this giant Great Wall of China-looking structure. And he's left like, what do I do now? You're like, I think sometimes, and I've done this myself, where you start writing something and you go, oh my God, wouldn't it be cool if I did this? So you go off on this tangent And you just keep going. I think the writers just said, we're just going to follow this tangent. Instead of keeping the villain focused on what he wants and what he should do to achieve that goal, they just said, we're just going to have him do crazy stuff like a wall that comes out of nowhere. And nobody, there's a quick montage of the news media, but nobody is on camera seen saying, look, the wall came out of nowhere. We're being invaded by aliens or ghosts or something. Nobody does that. Instead, we're treated to the only legitimate action sequence in the film. Now, so Diana and Steve have to go to Egypt. They know he's there. I don't know where they went. It's never explained. I assume that the Smithsonian keeps, according to this film, the Smithsonian keeps a roster of working fighter jets at their disposal from every world war and every era. It's so bizarre. It's as if, imagine if she goes, we need a plane, and they look up, and there's the Spirit of St. Louis. Didn't they do that in Battle of the Smithsonian? Then they'd use something like that. But she uses her ID card to go into this area. I won't even say museum. This area. And she lets Steve Trevor pick out this fighter jet. This fighter jet. And remember, he's from World War I. They fought World War I with biplanes. The Red Baron, does that ring a bell? So he gets in it, and not only is it a two-seater next to each other, which I have never seen in the history of fighter jets in movies. Unless it's a fantasy movie, they sit one in front of the other, not side by side. Who would sit side by side? They sit side by side, and he just starts flipping switches. Like, here we go, we're going into the air, and it's just lift and air and drag. And you're like, that's how flight is accomplished, sir. Not this plane that you're in that is light years beyond what you... I mean, he flew with a yoke stick, and a propeller. A freaking propeller. And he's in a fighter jet. They go off into the sky. Remember, her powers are weakening at this point. It's never really said till the fight on the road with the trucks. But they get in the air, and he's like, the way I fly, no one's going to see us. And she's like, well, I forgot to tell you about radar. And so they're going to track the jet, and they're going to make sure they're going to shoot. I mean, they would shoot it down, right? The American forces would shoot this plane down because it shouldn't be in the air. It's being stolen. They don't know if it's nefarious means. Who's stealing it? Why are they stealing it? Are they going to attack us? And instead, I swear, this is where the movie starts this trend of, if something needs to happen, they just say it needs to happen. She has never, in any of the movie moments I've seen, admitted that she can turn things invisible. What? Wouldn't that power have come in handy, I don't know, 1,000 times before now? So she waves her hands together like Mr. Miyagi at the end of Karate Kid and touches the airplane and makes it invisible. Both visible and on radar. It's like it doesn't exist. And they take off into the sky. And you think, well, she got to have an invisible jet. That's the lore. I guess it's an invisible jet now. And he's flying it, not her. I mean, in the cartoons, in the comic books, Wonder Woman flies the invisible jet. That's what she does. Because why, Jeff? Because she can't fly. They've added that power here and there. But for 90% of the Wonder Woman lore, she cannot fly. She can use her lasso and harness the lightning and fly like Thor. Thor throws his hammer and then is propelled by the force of it. There's a sequence where Steve Trevor launches a rocket and she grabs the rocket and then flies off using the rocket, but she cannot fly. And how do we know she cannot fly? She's in a plane. She's in the plane, the invisible jet. And apparently they leave Washington and go to Cairo. They don't stop anywhere for a bathroom break or a snack. They just end up in Cairo. It's so dumb. It's that missing scene from the first Iron Man where he's going to go take out the terrorists and he gets in the suit and then he's battling the terrorists. You're like, whoa. He flew 18 hours in that suit? Now, in the deleted scenes, he makes a pit stop. In Wonder Woman, I don't know. You know what? I don't want another scene in this movie. I'm telling you right now, if this comes out on Blu-ray with extra scenes, I don't care. I'm not buying it. I don't care if those extra scenes explain everything. You should have put it in the movie and cut something else out. The movie's bloated. It's way long, and it's boring. That's the biggest crime of Wonder Woman 1984, is that it's boring. Yes, she is easy on the eyes. But that only goes so far. The movie has to be about something. I don't know what this villain's ultimate goal is. It's never stated. He simply grants wishes, takes something from them, and then bleeds out the nose like 11 in Stranger Things. Okay, so they get to Cairo. They have their silly action sequence, and she's injured because she's losing her powers, and I guess they realize that he's causing it because as long as he's alive, there has to be a price to pay, because magic always comes with a price. Thank you, Rumpelstiltskin from Once Upon a Time. So where do they go from here? Where does the movie go from here? He's now the most powerful tycoon on the planet. So what does he want? It's never even said. I guess if I had to, all the way through, if I had to see all the way to the end of the movie and ask, what does he want? He wants to appear as a good father to his kid. That's it, right? That's his whole motivation. Because late in the movie, we're going to see a sequence of scenes where he is shown to be an abused child. He wet the bed and his father beat him. He was never good enough for his father. His father. Well, I hate to tell you, Max, but you're a terrible father. And very little you can do at this point is going to redeem all the horrible awfulness that you've done. The movie escalates again. Remember I talked about how they just go down this road and they don't know where they're going, but they want to just, where does it lead? He decides he needs to talk to the president. So he makes it so that he can get all the way to the White House without a red light or traffic. He wastes a wish, a universal grant anything wish on traffic. And that's where, again, the movie's been mediocre up till this point. But the presidential scene is where it completely goes off the rails. Because who cares? I don't know what they want. He walks into the Oval Office and the Secret Service are like hands on guns. And at one point he grabs the president and they have hands on guns. It's like, wait a minute. He has no powers. It's not like he has been shown that he can look at you and you blow across the wall, through the wall, or he has no superpowers. He has no mental powers. He only has powers if he touches you and you tell him what you want. That's it. He doesn't walk around with hired goons. They're going to take you out if you look at him the wrong way. He's no threat. He's a guy in a suit. He looks like Simon Le Bon. So why is he in with the president? It's never explained. Never explained. When he meets with the president, it irritates me to no end. Wonder Woman 1984, set in Washington, D.C., and the president isn't Ronald Reagan. It's just some guy. They don't have jelly beans on the desk. He's not doing a Reagan impression. He's just some dude. And when they asked the director, she's like, well, I wanted to be ambiguous about it. No. You set the movie in 1984. You did that. Watchmen had Nixon. Movies have presidents, and they have to be the president that was around at the time, or your movie's foolish. It's not Reagan. It's just some guy. He mentions the Star Wars, the Strategic Defense Initiative, Star Wars. And then he says, well, tell me what you want, Mr. President. What will make this all go away? Because, the world's now full of tension because of what happened in the Middle East. And the president wishes not for world peace. He wishes for more nuclear weapons. So they make whoever this not Reagan character is, they make him a warmonger. And he wants to just annihilate everybody. So in an instant, nuclear warheads appear everywhere on the planet. And everybody is threatened by it. Russia's going to attack. They're going to launch the missiles. The world is at the brink of nuclear war. And nobody in the other movies remembers this moment in time. That's the problem, making these movies so far out of order that you're not able to do a plot like this. And I gave the movie a temporary pass because if the guy is the wishing stone, he can simply get someone to wish that everything was back the way it was and that nobody remembers what had happened. And that's, frankly, call me crazy, that's where I thought this movie was going. I thought they were speeding towards a full reset at the end. Like Weird Science, when the house cleans itself as if the party had never happened. And they sort of give that look. Why not do that? They don't do it, though. They don't do it. So instead, the movie careens into, of all movies to emulate, Bruce Almighty. He becomes a god, and he wants to hear the entire world's wishes. So he's going to go to a satellite dish that has the ability to take over every satellite in ringing the globe and take over every broadcast, so that no matter what your TV is on or your computer, apparently it works on computers too for some reason, even though that's not how computers work in 1984, and you can broadcast. And he's going to have everybody tell him their wish, like Bruce Almighty meets Wonka Vision. Well, look at the TV and tell me your wish. Well, how can he hear them? They can hear him, but how is he going to hear their wishes? You haven't given us that power at all. Well, that's his plan. That's his plan. So Diana and Steve, who are in Cairo, finally figure out what's happening, and they got to get back to Washington immediately. So they are just shown 1 minute in full, like desert garb, and the next minute they're back in Washington. There's no time, no ticking clock to get there. Instead, they literally just jump around from continent to continent because the story says they have to. And that's so lazy, and it has so much disdain for your audience, because you're just they're stupid. They don't know how far Cairo is from Washington. It's around the block. No, it isn't. And they had to get from the city, which is now, I remind you, surrounded by a wall. Wherever they landed that invisible plane, get in the plane, make sure it has enough fuel, get back to the U.S. All these obstacles are just glossed over. They just show up back in Washington. They just show up. And we're in our final 40 minutes of this crap fest. And all this stuff now has to start happening, or, we're hurtling towards the end. So you've set this crap up. Now it has to be dealt with. The first is Steve Trevor. She has to give up Steve Trevor, or she's not going to be able to defeat the bad guy, even though he has no powers. She doesn't know when she gets there that Kristen Wiig's going to turn into an actual cheetah woman. She needs her powers to fight the bad guy. There's a scene in the middle where she has, in her closet, a suit of armor, and Steve Trevor goes, "What's that?" Well, a million years ago, 10,000 years ago, wherever it was, we all went to Amazon Island, and one warrior stayed behind to fight off the men so that we could escape. And that's the armor she wore, fighting off the men. And I spent my lifetime looking for it. Oh, this ought to be good, a good story. No, she then puts the lasso around his wrist, and he can see the past. You're like, she goes, she says something vague about, well, it's the truth, so it shows you the truth. It doesn't just pull the truth out of you, it shows you the truth. So now it's like a MacGuffin that can do anything now. And it's not like It's not like she's... it's so dumb. Maybe she does. Maybe that's what's happening at the end. Like, she wraps it around him and he's seeing the truth of what happened when he was younger. But why would he need the lasso, talking about Max, why would he need the lasso to see the truth if he was there? Because Steve Trevor is being shown the truth because he wasn't there when she fought off the hordes of men. See how none of it makes sense? And unlike a good movie, the more you analyze and talk about this movie, the worse it gets. The worse it gets. So she renounces her wish. I renounce my wish. And she walks around a corner, but we don't see Steve Trevor disintegrating or becoming the other person. She just walks away. In a movie of strange moments, it might be the strangest. With zero payoff, zero emotional depth to it. It just happens. Then we cut to the satellite link-up place where he's talking to the world and getting all their wishes. And I thought, okay, now we've reached the point where he's going to grant all these wishes for people. And in return, he's decided to take, I'm not kidding, their health. He's going to take their health from them. Because every time he gives a wish, he gets sick. He gets movie disease. And so he needs their health. So I thought, okay, so he's going to now become inhuman. Like we know, because of the toy line and the Legos, that Kirsten Wiig is going to turn into a cheetah woman. And she does it by saying, I want to be the apex predator. I want to be stronger and faster than anybody. Okay. But by the same token, shouldn't something like that happen to him? Shouldn't he become like this big, massive, like, you know when that guy in Big Trouble in Little China just sort of blows up? Like, shouldn't it be like that? Shouldn't he become inhuman and have his comeuppance? No, nothing like that. Instead, Wonder Woman gets there, battles bullets. Now, this is the part, again, the movie makes no sense. She has denounced her wish. Steve Trevor is once again dead. She is now fully superhuman. She is a god. Why does she have to wear this armor? Because once she gets there, she just shrugs it off. Once the bullets are done flying, she just shrugs it off, and now she battles Cheetah in the armor in what is a CGI slugfest. But you know what? I was at this point happy to see it because it's at least action. Like it's something happening on screen besides people talking. And when I talked earlier about laughable acting, when she's talking to Steve Trevor about how he knows what has to be done and she can't do it, it's some of the worst acting I've seen in a movie in years. And she's wearing a bad wig. It looks like a reshoot. It looks like something that is stuck in because she doesn't look like Wonder Woman at all in these sequences. And I'd be curious to know if those are the moments they reshot because it does look out of place completely. So she battles Cheetah and she ends up electrifying Cheetah because remember, again, Wonder Woman's a god, a goddess. She transcends humanity. And Cheetah's just human after all, under all the pomp and circumstance. So she electrocutes her. And Cheetah dies. She lays the body down. She goes in to finally get Max off the TV. And she does that by knocking the camera aside. So then Max walks over to some light show. There's this light show thing, this bath. And he gets in it like he's going to do a quantum leap. And he's still getting all the broadcasts. Like this, again, folks, if you're going to make a movie this big with these kinds of ideas, you have to freaking explain them. What is he doing in the light? Why wasn't he in there to begin with? What's happening? He's still giving wishes. People are wishing other people dead. They're wishing to be famous. There's a couple of those Michael Bay scenes like I talked about that the movie actually needed some more of consequences. But they're just stupid. Like, yeah, I'll take a wish. I wish you were dead. And the woman drops dead. He's like, oh my God, what have I done? Like, well, you wished her dead. That's the movie. But what's happening? What's the goal? He has no goal. This Max villain is the dumbest, cardboard villain I've ever seen in a superhero movie. Like, even bad superhero movies, the bad guy has a goal. Lex Luthor wants to set off a nuclear bomb so that all of California drops in the ocean and his desert property becomes oceanfront property. That's his plan. It's convoluted, but it's fun. Right? Villains have motives. There's always a scene where the villain goes, here's what I intend to do. Like in Watchmen, this is what I'm doing. And he's like, when did you have this planned? When? I did it 15 minutes ago. You think I'd explain my master stroke if there was any chance of you affecting its outcome? I'm not a Republic serial villain. Max never states what he wants, because if it's to become rich and powerful, he accomplishes it 40 minutes in, and then the movie should just end. He never becomes a monster. He never puts anyone in danger except the whole planet through nuclear war. That's very strange, you know? So she wraps her lasso around him and gets everyone on Earth to renounce their wish for the good of mankind. I ask you, if no one in Batman vs. Superman had ever heard of Wonder Woman, who did they think was that woman who, in 1984, asked them to renounce their wish by broadcasting that announcement across every conceivable broadcast outlet on the planet? Who was that? Because if Superman appeared, you would do it. I renounce my wish. Why? Well, freaking Superman asked me to. You don't renounce your wish because a woman's voice tells you. It's not your mom. We don't know who Wonder Woman is. She has no clout in this world. She has gone out of her way to make it so that nobody knows who she is. Frustratingly stupid movie. Asks you to just take all this with a grain of salt and never ask questions about it. And the basic question is, why is any of this happening? Because the screenwriters don't know. The movie makers don't know. They just throw crap on the screen. We cut back. There's even a sequence where a terrorist wishes for a nuclear bomb. And even he, a guy who's willing to blow himself up for his cause, renounces his wish and gives back the nuclear bomb. Why not, at the end, show that guy with the bomb and say, I never renounced my wish, and the world's going to pay. End it like that. Like, oh my God, the third one's going to be amazing. This guy's got a nuclear bomb. What are they going to do with it? No. Even he, sucks his thumb and renounces his wish for the good of somebody. I don't know. Some woman told me to. She broadcast it. What was being broadcast? Once the camera's knocked over, what are they seeing? There's no camera on Max. There's no camera on Wonder Woman. How are they hearing him? How are they hearing the other people? Nothing is explained. We cut to Max's son wandering the streets of Washington, D.C., looking for his dad as the world is literally about to explode. Wishes are being granted. Chaos. Nuclear bombs are about to fly. And then suddenly, with a click, everything disappears. But not in a reset way. In a simple, everything just disappears way. All the carnage, all the fire hydrants shooting water in the sky, all that still happens. Because Max is somehow redeemed by getting people to renounce their wishes, and he's not going to die from overload of granting those wishes. And the next sequence, he's wandering the streets of Washington, and his son just wanders out of the bushes. If I wrote that scene, I would hate myself. How did he find that kid? There's no cell phones. He doesn't know where his kid was. His kid was about to be killed by an angry mob, like in Kingsman. All these elements are just sort of floating in the atmosphere of this movie. This movie is a smorgasbord of crap, and you're just putting dollops of it on a plate. I'll take some of that. Oh, there's the angry mob. Oh, there's the guy who has cows. He finds his son. What does it all mean? I don't know. Couldn't tell you. The most telling moment of the screenwriters have no idea what they're doing is when they're in the airplane. Diana Prince and Steve Trevor are flying, and they see fireworks over one part of the city. like a fireworks display over a football game. And instead of just saying, oh, that's the Washington Redskins are playing a football game, instead she goes, oh, I forgot, it's the 4th of July. She goes, oh yeah, it's the 4th of July. It's never been mentioned it's the 4th of July. There's no decorations for it to be the 4th of July. There's nothing on the radio, the TV, or anything to indicate it's the 4th of July. And only one area of the city is having fireworks. One area. And then they fly. It's a beautiful sequence, which, again, they didn't think it through, because how beautiful would it have been if the two of them were sitting in those seats and there's no plane around them? Because it's, invisible. So they're flying, like holding hands in their seats through the fireworks. They don't do any of that. They're in a military plane that they can see. There's no magic to it. It's just colors on a screen, and oh yeah, I forgot. It's the 4th of July. That should have been the tagline for this movie. Wonder Woman 84. Oh yeah, it's the 4th of July. Max and his son are reunited. He's never going to pay any price. He doesn't go to jail. Nothing of the kind happens. So, what are we left with? Nothing. The movie just sort of ends. It just goes, boom, Wonder Woman, 1984. And I was like, that's it, huh? And I'll tell you how creatively bankrupt they are. The mid-credit sequence there, was there an end credit sequence? I don't think there was. I think I watched at the end. But the mid-credit sequence is a kid is in danger of having a light post fall on him, and a woman we see from the back stops it, and the kid's mother's like, "Oh, you saved my baby, thank you." And she turns around and she's like, "I've been doing this a while." And it's Linda Carter. And she's obviously now, she was the woman who fought the hordes of men so that the Amazons could escape. And she's been living on Earth the whole time. That's a fun twist. And a fantastic, perfect cameo for this movie. And how do they pay it off? As soon as she smiles and they go to black, it says, special appearance by Linda Carter as this character. And I went, you didn't even let it marinate for a second. Let people in the theater go to their friends. Did you see Linda Carter? Oh my God, that was Linda Carter. Oh yeah, no, she was Wonder Woman. Instead, it's on the screen. Let the credits go. And then at the very end go, Linda Carter as so-and-so. They couldn't even let it sit for a second. Imagine in Prince of Thieves, if Sean Connery marries Robin Hood and Maid Marian, and then it goes, Sean Connery as good King Richard. Give me a break. Who made this movie? Why did they edit it? Why did they put it together like this? This movie needed, like I said, an hour cut from it. All these subplots could have gone. Lame. The villain has no purpose. I don't know. Oh, and I didn't tell you, Cheetah comes back to life. Kristen Wiig comes back to life. They don't even kill Cheetah. She comes back to life and she's like, oh my God, I've learned a lesson. Do not waste your 2.5 hours on Wonder Woman 1984. I can't believe that's the movie we got. I was so looking forward to this movie. I love Wonder Woman. I love expensive superhero movies. And this wasn't it, man. This movie could have been made on... It looked like a TV, like one of those Channel 5 CW superhero movies, because it had no action in it. Diana and... or Wonder Woman and Max don't even really fight. He has no powers. She could walk up and just beat the crap out of him. What a letdown. What a letdown. Well, there's Wonder Woman 1984. And the ending of this show will be just as a letdown as that movie.